I found out my wife cheated with her ex-husband right before my stepdaughter's wedding. Worse, my own daughter helped cover it up. Now they're both begging me to come back, but they're too late. I've already moved on with my life. Hello Reddit I plus here. And the person who helped her hide it wasn't some stranger. It was my own daughter. Now my wife is begging me to come home. My daughter is begging me to forgive her. My stepdaughter keeps telling me I am still her father. But I've already moved on. And honestly, I'm not sure whether I'm supposed to feel guilty about that. My name is Graham. I'm 55 years old, and until recently, I thought I had built a pretty good life. I had been married to my wife, Marianne, for 12 years. She was 52. She had a daughter from her first marriage, Rachel, who was 27 and getting married. I had a daughter from my first marriage, Kayla, who was 29. When Marianne and I got married, both girls were teenagers. It wasn't always easy blending two families, but over the years, something happened that I never expected. Rachel became my daughter in every way that mattered. I wasn't her biological father, but I was there. I helped with homework. I taught her how to drive. I sat beside her during her first heartbreak. I paid for part of her college tuition. When she graduated, I was there. When she got engaged to Jordan, I cried harder than I expected to. And when she asked me if I would give a speech at her wedding, I told her I would be honored. I wasn't just attending that wedding, I was emotionally invested in it. I spent nearly 8 months helping Marianne and Rachel organize everything. I paid for a portion of the reception. I helped arrange transportation. I reviewed contracts. I even spent an entire Saturday assembling stupid little decorations for the reception because Rachel had decided she wanted everything to look personal. I complained about it, but I secretly loved every second because I thought this was what family was supposed to look like. Then 4 days before the wedding, I discovered that my entire understanding of my family had been built on a lie. It happened because of something incredibly ordinary. I was looking for a USB drive, that's it. I needed a file for a presentation I was working on, and I remembered putting the drive in Marianne's desk drawer because my office was being reorganized. She wasn't home, so I opened the drawer. I found the USB drive, and underneath it was a hotel receipt. At first, I didn't think anything of it. Then I saw the names, Marianne Harper and Derek Harper. Derek was her ex-husband, Rachel's biological father. The man Marianne had spent 12 years telling me was completely irrelevant to our marriage. I stared at that receipt for what felt like 10 minutes. The hotel was less than 20 minutes from our house. The date was 3 weeks earlier. One night, 2 people, 1 room. I felt physically sick. I checked the receipt again, then again. I even wondered if there was some innocent explanation. Maybe they had met there to discuss the wedding. Maybe there had been a mistake. Maybe Derek had booked the room and Marianne had only stopped by. I desperately wanted one of those explanations to be true. So I put the receipt back exactly where I found it. I took the USB drive and I walked outside. I sat in my car with the engine off. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just stared through the windshield, and slowly, something inside me changed. Because the receipt wasn't proof of everything, but it was proof that my wife had lied to me. And suddenly, I started remembering things I had ignored. The way Marianne had started guarding her phone, the new password, the sudden errands, the way she would leave the room to answer certain calls, the strange nervousness whenever Derek's name came up. I had noticed all of it. I just hadn't wanted to connect the dots. I called Kayla. My daughter answered almost immediately. Hey, Dad. I asked her where she was. She told me she was at Rachel's apartment helping with wedding preparations. My stomach dropped. I asked her a simple question. Has your mom been seeing Derek? There was silence. Not confusion, not disbelief, silence. That was when I knew. I asked again. Kayla, has she? She finally said, Dad, I think you need to talk to Mom. I felt my hands go cold. Why did you say that? Another silence. Then she whispered something I'll never forget. Because I already knew. I didn't understand. What do you mean you already knew? She started crying. She told me Marianne had confessed to her about a month earlier. Not everything, just enough. She said Marianne had told her she and Derek had become emotionally close again. Kayla said she didn't know they had slept together. I didn't believe her. Maybe she didn't know. Maybe she did. But either way, she had known enough to tell me, and she didn't. I asked her why. Her answer destroyed me almost as much as the affair. Because the wedding was 4 weeks away, Dad. I said nothing. She continued. Mom said if you found out, you'd leave. And if you left, the wedding would become a disaster. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So you helped her hide it? No, you knew, and you said nothing. I was scared. You weren't scared enough to tell your father the truth. She started sobbing. I hung up. That night, I didn't confront Marianne. I couldn't. I needed facts. Not because I wanted revenge, because I had spent 12 years believing I knew the person sleeping beside me. I needed to know how badly I had been deceived. The next morning, I checked our joint financial records. There were hotel charges, restaurant charges, gas purchases, and several withdrawals I couldn't explain. Then I found something worse. A series of messages between Marianne and Derek. I won't repeat every word. I don't need to. There were enough messages to tell me this wasn't a one-time mistake. It had been going on for months. They talked about missing each other. They talked about their marriage. They talked about memories. They talked about what it would be like if they were together again. And then I found a message from Marianne that made me sit back in my chair. She told Derek, after the wedding, everything will be easier. After the wedding, not after one conversation, not after therapy, after the wedding. That sentence told me exactly where I stood. I wasn't her husband. I was an obstacle, standing between her and the life she apparently wanted, and Rachel's wedding wasn't just a celebration. It was a deadline. I confronted Marianne that afternoon. She came home expecting to discuss flowers. Instead, she found me sitting at the kitchen table with the hotel receipt in front of me. She stopped walking. She looked at the receipt. Then she looked at me. She didn't ask what it was. That was the moment I knew. I said, "How long?" She sat down. She cried. She said she was sorry. She said she was confused. She said Derek had come back into her life and brought up feelings she thought were dead. I asked the only question that mattered. "Did you sleep with him?" She looked down. Yes, one word. 12 years of marriage gone in one word. I asked how many times. She said she didn't know. That answer made me laugh. Not because it was funny, because sometimes your mind doesn't know what else to do. I asked whether she loved him. She said, "I don't know." I asked whether she loved me. She said, "Of course I do." I stood up. "Then why did you do it?" She couldn't answer. Then she said something that made me realize how little she understood what she had done. "I didn't want to hurt you." I stared at her. "You didn't want to hurt me? So you had an affair with your ex-husband and hid it until after your daughter's wedding?" She started crying harder. Then she said, "I was going to tell you." "When?" She didn't answer. "After the wedding?" Silence. I nodded. "So you were going to let me stand there and give a speech about how wonderful our family was while you were sleeping with your ex?" She said, "I was going to end it." I asked, "Were you?" She looked away. That was enough. I packed a suitcase. She begged me not to leave. I left anyway. I checked into a hotel across town, and for the first time in 12 years, I slept alone. The next morning, I called Rachel. I didn't know how much she knew. I didn't know if she had been involved. I didn't even know if she knew her father and my wife had slept together. When she answered, I asked her to meet me. She came to the hotel. She looked terrified. I told her the truth. She covered her mouth. Then she started crying. She told me she knew her parents had been spending time together. She said she thought they were trying to become friends again. Then I asked her if she knew about the hotel. She said no, but she admitted something else. Her mother had told her that if I became upset before the wedding, she should try to keep me calm. That broke something inside me, because suddenly I realized everyone had been managing me, keeping me happy, keeping me useful, keeping me unaware, so the wedding could happen. Rachel looked at me and said, "Please still come." I asked her why. She said, "Because you're my dad." I told her, "I'm not sure I know what that means anymore." She cried harder. The wedding was the next Saturday. I almost didn't go, but I decided I wasn't going to punish Rachel for something her mother had done. So I went. I didn't sit beside Marianne. I didn't take pictures with her. I didn't pretend everything was fine. I gave Rachel the wedding gift I had bought months earlier. And when it was time for the speeches, I stood at the microphone. The room was packed. Marianne was sitting near the front. Derek was there too. I looked at them. Then I looked at Rachel. And I said, "Rachel, there are moments in life when people become family because of blood, and there are moments when people become family because they choose each other." I paused. "I want you to know that whatever happens between the adults in your life, my love for you has never depended on any of that." Rachel started crying. "So today isn't about old marriages, new marriages, broken promises, or mistakes." I looked at her fiancé. "Today is about two people choosing each other." I raised my glass. "May you both have the courage to be honest with each other, even when honesty is difficult." That was all I said. I sat down. I didn't expose the affair. I didn't ruin the wedding. But Marianne knew exactly what I meant. After the reception, she followed me outside. She grabbed my arm. "Please come home." I pulled my arm away. She said she loved me. She said Derek meant nothing compared to me. She said she had made the biggest mistake of her life. I told her I believed she regretted getting caught. She said that wasn't fair. I told her maybe it wasn't. But I wasn't interested in fairness anymore. I was interested in peace. The divorce started 2 weeks later. It wasn't easy. There were lawyers, arguments over finances, arguments over the house, arguments over things I never thought I'd have to discuss with someone I had once planned to grow old with. Kayla begged me to forgive her too. She said she hated herself for staying quiet. I told her I understood why she was scared, but understanding wasn't the same as trust. For several months, we barely spoke. Rachel kept contacting me. She called me on my birthday. She sent me pictures from her honeymoon. She invited me to Thanksgiving. I almost didn't go. But eventually, I realized something. Marianne had broken our marriage. She hadn't broken my relationship with Rachel. Rachel hadn't asked her mother to cheat on me. She hadn't chosen any of this, so I slowly let her back into my life. But Marianne? No, she kept asking for another chance. She said Derek wasn't worth losing me. She said she had realized what she had thrown away. She even told me she had ended things with him. I told her that was between her and Derek. I was no longer part of that triangle. A year later, I sold the house. I moved to a smaller place near the coast. I started traveling. I joined a photography group. I made friends I hadn't seen in years. I started going to restaurants alone. I learned how peaceful Saturday mornings could be when nobody was lying to you. And eventually, I met someone. Her name is Nora. She knew about my divorce. She knew I had been betrayed. But she didn't treat me like a broken man. She didn't interrogate me. She didn't make me prove where I was. She didn't hide her phone. She didn't make me wonder where I stood. She simply showed up, consistently, honestly. And that was something I had forgotten existed. Last month, Marianne called me. She said she wanted to meet. I agreed. We sat at a coffee shop. She looked different, older, tired. She told me she had spent the last year realizing what she had done. Then she said, "I thought I was choosing between two men." I didn't respond. She continued, "But I was actually choosing between the life I had and the life I imagined." I told her that was probably true. She asked if I ever missed her. I thought about it. Sometimes. Her eyes filled with tears. "Then why won't you come back?" I looked at her. "Because missing someone isn't the same as wanting them back," she cried. I didn't. She asked if there was any chance. I said no. Not because I hated her, not because I wanted her to suffer, but because I had finally built a life that didn't require me to ignore my own pain. As I was leaving, she asked one last question. "Do you love Nora?" I said, "Yes." She nodded. Then she asked, "More than you loved me?" I thought about that for a long time. Finally, I said, "It's different." She asked what I meant. I told her, "With you, I spent years believing love meant holding on no matter what." I paused. "With her, I've learned that love can also mean feeling safe enough to let your guard down." I walked away, and that's where I am now. My daughter has apologized. My stepdaughter has apologized. My ex-wife has apologized. Everyone wants me to believe that enough time has passed, and everyone has learned their lesson. Maybe they have. Maybe people really can change. But here's the part I'm struggling with. I don't want my old life back, not even the good parts, because every good memory I have with Marianne now has a shadow attached to it. Every anniversary, every vacation, every family dinner, every time she said she loved me, I will always wonder what was happening behind the scenes. Maybe that's unfair. Maybe forgiveness means letting go of those questions. But I don't think forgiveness requires reconciliation. I can forgive someone and still decide they no longer get access to me. That's what I've done. The strange part is that some people think I'm being cold. My daughter says I'm punishing her mother. My stepdaughter says she understands why I'm angry, but hopes one day I'll reconsider. Even some mutual friends have told me that 12 years shouldn't be thrown away because of one terrible period. But it wasn't one night. It wasn't one mistake. It was months of choices, months of lies. And the worst part wasn't even the affair. It was realizing that the people closest to me knew something was wrong and decided I was the only person who didn't deserve the truth. So now I'm asking Reddit, am I wrong for refusing to go back? Should I give my ex-wife another chance because she genuinely seems remorseful? Should I work harder to repair things with my daughter after she helped hide the affair? Or am I allowed to accept that some relationships can be forgiven without ever being restored? Because for the first time in my adult life, I don't feel like I'm running away from something. I feel like I'm finally walking towards something. And honestly, I don't want to turn around.